Ohai. The Republic of Kiribati, the Pacific state located in Micronesia and Polynesia. Borders in the northwest on waters of the Marshall Islands, the federal states of Micronesia, in the west and the southwest, on territorial waters of Nauru, the Solomon Islands and Tuvalu, in the south and the southeast, on territorial waters of Tokelau, the Cook Islands and French Polynesia. In the north and the northeast borders on neutral Pacific waters and also the external small islands. USA. Extent of a coastal strip -1143 km. An exclusive coastal economic zone. Ease. About 3.5 million km. Territorial waters, about 22 km from the basic line. "33 small atolls, from which 20 are uninhabited. -16 islands and atolls in the archipelago of Gilberta, the island of Banaba. Ocean. 8 islands in Phoenix Islands and 8 islands in the archipelago of Lane are a part of the Republic of Kiribati. Total area -812.34 km. The population of Kiribati -103,058 people. 2010 a census. The capital, South Tarawa. Biriki. Independence of Colony of the Gilbert Islands of Great Britain was declared on July 12, 1979, same year she was officially renamed into the Republic of Kiribati. In 1983 the Treaty of Friendship between the USA and Kiribati, on which the USA refused claims for 14 islands in the archipelagos of Lane and Phoenix, came into force, having recognized them as a part of Kiribati. Kiribati, the only state located at once in 2 couples of hemispheres of Earth. Northern, southern, western and east. Along with France and its overseas territories, if not to take into account dependent territories of Great Britain, the USA and Norway. It's a result of change of the time zone of the Line Islands undertaken by the government of Kiribati, and shift of the line of change of date. The atoll of Caroline I became the most east point of the time zone, meeting New Year to the 1st. The part of the islands of Kiribati is located in the most east time zone, Utes +14. Here before everything on Earth new calendar day comes. Time of day. Hours and minutes. Coincides with time in Hawaii. Utes -10. Here, but is shifted for 1 day ahead, at the same time with some islands in Oceania the time difference is 25 hours. All islands of Kiribati atolls. The island of Banaba, the lifted atoll. According to Charles Darwin's theory, formation of atolls resulted from immersion of volcanic islands at which surface corals gradually grew. There was a formation of the bordering reef, and subsequently a barrier which was gradually built on by corals. The land of the atoll resulted. So, scientists Marshall and Jacobson assumed that the atoll of Tarawa appeared about 2,500 years ago. The Gilbert Islands were formed at underwater tops of mountains of the Micronesian raising. Phoenix Island, on ridges of the southern part of the Pacific Plate. The Line Islands is located at the tops of the underwater ridges limiting the central hollow of the Pacific Ocean from the east rising to the surface of the ocean. The Republic of Kiribati consists of 32 low atolls and 1 lifted atoll of Banaba, or ocean. The total area of Sushi is 812.34 km. The distance from the most western to the most east island of the Republic makes about 4,000 km. The largest is a part of the Republic of Kiribati, 388.39 km. The atoll of the world isn't present in a source, Christmas Island, which occupies 48% of all land of the country. 32 atolls and one island of Banaba are divided into 4 groups of islands. 16 islands of the archipelago of Gilberta, including the atoll of Tarawa, the island of Banaba, are ocean, near Nauru. 8 islands of Phoenix Islands. 8 islands of the archipelago of Lane are central Polynesian sporades. The Gilbert Islands, group of islands in a southeast part of Micronesia. Total area about 279 km. Within the archipelago, it is possible to allocate 3 subgroups differing on an amount of precipitation. The Northern Gilbert Islands, Nakin and Butaritari. The Central Gilbert Islands, all atolls from Maraki to Aranuka. And the Southern Gilbert Islands, from Nanuti to Ari. In the territory of the atoll of Tarawa of this archipelago, the state capital, South Tarawa, is located. Approximately in 1480 came to the east from the Gilbert Islands Phoenix Island, the archipelago from 9 uninhabited and 1 lived. The island the Canton. The atoll in Polynesia is located. Further in the east, the Line Islands are the central Polynesian sporades, including the biggest atoll of Christmas in the world, are Kiribati, and the most east island in Kiribati, Carolina, located. All islands in the archipelago of Lane, except the islands of Kiribati, Tiburon and Terena, and in Phoenix Islands, except the atoll de Canton, are uninhabited. The atolls, divided by a set of narrow passages, have the form which is mainly extended from the north on the south. On the majority of the atolls of Kiribati there are small salty lagoons, are completely surrounded with the land. As on the atoll of Maraki, or partially. As on the atolls of Nanuti and Tabatuea. In comparison with the Marshall Islands and Tuvalu lagoons on the Gilbert Islands, superficial. The maximum depth of a lagoon of the atoll of Tarawa is 25 meters. The highest point of the country is on the island of Banaba, 81 m. Till 1979 on the island of Banaba, on which there were some of the world's largest reserves of phosphorites, developments of phosphates were conducted that led to considerable environmental problems. As a result, a part of the population of this island moved on the island Rambi of N, now relating to the state of Fiji. Also, it is supposed that on Oceanic Day of the exclusive economic zone Kiribati there are large congestions of ferromanganese concretions and also cobalt. However, at the moment developments because of economic inexpediency aren't conducted. The majority of islands in the archipelago of Gilberta and several islands in the archipelagos of Lane and Phoenix are located in a dry belt of the equatorial oceanic climatic zone. Long since locals allocate 2 seasons in a year. The first of them, usually lasting from October to the March, beginning with emergence in a sky of a star cluster of galaxies. The second season, Omamaki, who usually lasts from April to September and begins with emergence in a sky of the constellation of the Scorpion. More rainy is the season, while the season of Omamaki is more droughty.
The research of the direction of winds, which was conducted on the atoll of Tarawa from 1978 to 1983, indicates that from December to May the winds blowing from the east and the northeast, and in April, November, from the east and the southeast are prevailing.
At the same time, winds from December to May blow stronger. The climate of Kiribati depends on two zones of convergence. Intertropical, which determines the level of rainfall on northern atolls, and South Pacific, which determines the level of rainfall on the southern atolls. Two anomalies, the phenomena of El Niño and La Niña, are connected with these two concepts. During El Niño, the intertropical zone of convergence moves the north towards the equator, at La Niña the south from the equator side. In the latter case, on the islands of Kiribati, the severe drought, in the first heavy rains, is observed. On northern atolls of the archipelago of Gilberta and the northern Line Islands, except Christmas Island, rainfall drops out more than on the atolls lying in the south. Level of rainfall in Kiribati varies from 1100 min the south of the Gilbert Islands, atoll of Tamana, up to 1300 May a year, atoll of Butaritari, and from 4000 min the archipelago of Lane, atoll of Torena, up to 800 mon the atoll de Canton, Phoenix Island, in the north. Hurricanes happen quite seldom. The driest months in a year are May and June. The rainy season on the Gilbert Islands lasts from October to April. Periodically there are droughts, especially in the central and southern islands of the archipelago of Gilberta, on Phoenix Island and Christmas Island, which have destructive influence on agricultural plants. First of all, a coconut palm. Average annual temperature in Kiribati varies from +26°C to +32°C. The hottest months September, November, the coldest January, March. A considerable threat to the future of the country is posed by global warming, including the related increase in global sea level, as a result of which low islands, not higher than 5 m, can appear underwater. In November,
Visited the President of Kiribati at the conference on issues of climate change, which was carried out in the capital of Kiribati to Drama, drew the attention of the leading states of the world, making the significant contribution to air pollution. Maharaj dashes to this problem and said that the Republic has to be ready to any consequences caused by global warming, including the need of resettlement of citizens of the continent.
In 2012, this question was brought up at the session of the Union. I remind every time to you of need of urgent actions in connection with climate change and sea level rise to provide long-term survival of Kiribati. President, Head of the Government and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Kiribati and Tonga, message of the press service of U. Soils and hydrology. Soils of Kiribati, high alkaline, coral origin, very poor. Usually they porous because of what very badly detain moisture. Also, local soils contain very few organic and mineral matter except for calcium, sodium and magnesium. Content of organic carbon in subsoils extremely low. It is less than 0.5%. Except for those places where taro, Latin of Certusperma chemicinus is grown up. Phosphatic soils are widespread on all republic. Also brown red soils which were formed of the guano which collected in groves of a plant of armor meat. Pisonia grandis. The rivers on the atolls of Kiribati are absent because of the small area, low altitude, porosity of soils. Instead, as a result of pouring rains, the water filtering through the soil forms a lens of slightly saltish water. It is possible to reach her, having dug out a well. Besides water which can be collected from leaves of a coconut palm after rains, these lenses, the only source of fresh water on the majority of the islands of Kiribati. The salinity of groundwaters usually decreases at a distance from a lagoon and the ocean. The location and groundwater level in many respects define features of flora, arrangement of wells and the cultivated lands. Uncontrollable process of urbanization and growth of population in South Tarawa led to hit in several places of sewage and soil. A considerable threat for the available reserves of fresh water on atolls is posed by increase in water level of the world ocean. Freshwater lakes are only on Christmas Island and Washington. Terena. In general, on islands of the Republic of Kiribati there are about 100 small salt lakes, some of which have diameter in several kilometers. Because of the small area of sushi, remoteness from continents, relatively young geological age of atolls and also a severe environment on the Gilbert Islands, there are 83 species of local plants, any of which isn't an endemic. 8 plant species, presumably, were delivered by natives, and total quantity of the vascular plants ever found on islands, about 306 types. It is possible to carry 2 plants which were delivered by natives: huge marsh taro. Latin of Certusperma chemicinus. Taro. Latin of Colocasia esculenta. Huge taro. Latin of Alocasia macrorhiza. Yam. Latin of Dioscorea cepes. 2 species of a breadfruit tree. Latin Artocarpus altilis and Lat. A. Marianensis. And Tachyperistinodrazini. Latin Tachyliontopetaloides. Plants A. Pandanus roofing. Latin Pandanus tectorius. And a coconut palm. Latin of Cocos nucifera. Probably have dual origin. On some islands it is radical plants, on others are delivered by the person. 4 plants. Taro, the coconut palm, a breadfruit tree, and a pandanus, played and play one of key roles in food of locals. Also plants of armor, characteristic of all atolls of Oceania, meat. Scaevola tecata. Timo. Lat. Tunafortia argentea. Tiren. Lat. Morinda citrifolia. Tinon. Lat. Gatardus pachosa. Tiyeri. Lat. Pemphis acidula. Tienja. And mangrove trees. The main representatives of sea fauna: lobsters, palm thieves, tridacna cones. Family of sea gastropoda of mollusks. Holothurias. Are sea cucumbers. Jemchichitsa. Coastal waters of islands are very rich with fish. About 600–800 types. And corals. About 200 types. Fish was always the main source of food for locals. In coastal waters, Lucianovi, Janet, Albula, Latin Albula vulpes, Hanosa, Latin of chanos, mullets with a large head, Latin of Valamujal, Varabulevi, Latin Eupanuus cp's meat, Caranxa, Latin Caranx cp's. Several species of sea turtles meat. The world of mammals of Kiribati is extremely poor. The small rat was the only land mammal noticed on islands during the American scientific expedition in the first half of the 19th century. Inhabitants breed poultry and pigs. The world of avifauna is rather various. In general, 75 bird species, one of which is an endemic, live in the country. It is a miller bird. Latin of Acrocephalus equinoctialis. Living on Christmas Island. The majority of islands in the archipelagos of Lane and Phoenix represent very large birds markets. So, the islands of Malden and Starbuck, and also a part of Christmas Island, are announced by sea reserves. Is known of settling of the islands of Kiribati and their early history very little. Nevertheless, there are assumptions that ancestors of the modern people of Kiribati arrived to the Gilbert Islands from East Melanesia at the beginning of the I millennium AD. The Line Islands and Phoenix by the time of their opening by Europeans and Americans were uninhabited. However, on these atolls there were traces of human presence far back in the past. It induced scientists to attempt to explain the reasons of disappearance of local population on the archipelagos of Lane and Phoenix. One of popular beliefs, the fact that in the conditions of the small area, from other archipelagos, droughty climate and deficiency of fresh water, it was extremely difficult for remoteness to live on these islands. Therefore the occupied islands people were forced to leave them shortly. Islands were for the first time opened to British and American vessels at the end of the beginning of the 19th centuries. They were called the Gilbert Islands in 1820. The Russian traveler, the Admiral Krusenstern, in honor of the English Captain Thomas Gilbert, who opened islands in 1788. Kiribati is a local pronunciation of the English word Gilberts. The traditional name of the Gilbert Islands, Tutungar, Tunguru. The first British settlers came on islands in 1837. In 1892 the Gilbert Islands with the next Ellis Islands became protectorate of the British Empire. In 1916 the Ellis Islands were united with the Gilbert Islands, the uniform colony of the Gilbert Islands and Ellis was created. Christmas Island, or Kiribati, became a part of colony in 1919, and Phoenix Island in 1937. During World War II the island of Bainoba and the majority of islands of the archipelago of Gilberta, including the atoll of Tarawa, were occupied by Japan. Tarawa, the place where there was one of the most bloody fights on the Pacific battlefield. In November 1943, between the Japanese and American army at the village of Bichio, the former capital of colony. In 1963, the colonial authorities undertook the first serious reforms in management of colony. Executive and advisory councils were created. In the last allowed the representatives of local population appointed the local resident commissioner. In 1967, the Executive Council was transformed to Government Council, and the Advisory Board in the House of Representatives with participation of officials of colonial administration and 24 Dix chosen local population. In 1971, the colony received the status of self-governed unit. At the head of her the governor was put. The newly established Legislative Council was elected by mainly local population. Deputies elected the representative expressing their interests in new Executive Council from the structure. In 1975, the colony was divided into independent colonies of the Gilbert Islands and the Ellice Islands. In 1978, the Ellice Islands became the independent state. The modern name Tuvalu. On July 12, 1979, independence was gained by the Gilbert Islands. The modern name the Republic of Kiribati. In 1983, the Treaty of Friendship between the USA and Kiribati, the prisoner in 1979, by which the USA refused claims for 14 islands in the archipelagos of Lane and Phoenix, came into force, having recognized them as a part of Kiribati. The main problem of the Republic was always the overpopulation of islands. In 1988, a part of the population of Tarawa was moved on less densely populated islands of the Republic. In 1994, Tabarora Tito was elected the president of the country. It was re-elected in 1998. In 1999, the Republic of Kiribati became the member of the Union. In 2002, the law allowing the government of the country to close newspapers was issued. It happened soon after emergence of the first successful non-governmental newspaper. The President Tito was re-elected in 2003, but in March 2003 he was displaced from the held post. In July 2003, Ano Tong from opposition party became the president. The atolls of Malden and Kiribati in the 20th century were used by the USA and Great Britain for test of atomic weapons, and in the 1960th years, a hydrogen bomb. The Republic of Kiribati is divided into 3 island groups which don't perform any administrative functions. These are the Gilbert Islands, the Line Islands and Phoenix Island. The main unit of self-government is Island Council, which is on each of manned islands. Only 21 islands. On the island of Tarawa 3 councils, 2 Tabatua -2 councils. The budget of councils consists of local income. In the 1970th years, the British colony of the Gilbert Islands and Ellice was divided into 4 districts. Ellice Islands, now Tuvalu. Gilbert Islands, Line Islands and Ocean Island, now Banaba. On January 1, 1972, the structure of colony of the Gilbert Islands and Ellice to the district of the Line Islands included the central and southern islands of the archipelago of Lane, to which raised a claim of the USA. It were the islands of Caroline, Flint, Starbuck and Vostok. In 1974, Phoenix Island became the independent district. Earlier were a part of the district of the Gilbert Islands. On October 1, 1975 the Ellis Islands gained independence and began to be called officially as Tuvalu, and the colony of the Gilbert Islands and Ellis was renamed into the Gilbert Islands. On July 12, 1979 the colony of the Gilbert Islands became the independent state, the new name, the Republic of Kiribati.
On September 20, 1979 between the Republic of Kiribati and the USA in Tarawa the Treaty of Friendship under which the USA refused the claims for 14 islands in the archipelagos of Lane and Phoenix was signed.
Burnie, the East Gardner. Nikumaroro. Canton. Earlier I was condominium of Britain and the USA. Caroline, Mackean, Malden, Sydney. Manra. Starbuck, Phoenix. Ravaki. Flint, Hull.
Orona.
Enderbury. Earlier I was condominium of Britain and the USA. And Christmas Island. Kiribati. The contract came into force on September 23, 1983.
During their opening by Europeans it is quite difficult to define population of islands of the Republic of Kiribati.
But it is obvious that already in those days Aboriginals faced problems of overpopulation of atolls and, therefore, limited birth rate, not to face a lack of resources for maintenance of life. After opening of islands by Europeans in Kiribati there were significant changes in reproduction of the population and social system. First of all, there was a sharp reduction of number of indigenous people because of violent evacuation of the population for work on plantations of Fiji and the Hawaiian Islands, and also because of diseases and public disorders caused by the conflicts on political, economic and religious grounds.
Nevertheless, since the end of World War II the population of Kiribati considerably increased, and mortality decreased as a result of improvements in health sector and purchases of import goods which allowed to endure frequent droughts in Kiribati. According to a census of 2010, the population of the Republic of Kiribati was people from whom persons lived on 17 islands of the archipelago of Gilberta with a total area of 279.23 km.
In the state capital, the city of South Tarawa, people lived. Population density on the Gilbert Islands different. The highest in South Tarawa.
2443 people on km.
The lowest on the atoll Puria.
63 people on km.
All other population lives on the Line Islands. Kiribati. Christmas Island. Tabuarani. Island Fanning. And Terrain. Washington Island. Total number of the population of Christmas Island is 5586 people.
Population density minus 14 people on km. Population density on the island of Terrain makes 177 people on km. While on Tabuarana minus 58 people on km.
The island of Canton, the only inhabited island of Phoenix Islands. Its population is made by only 31 persons. All other atolls in Phoenix Islands are uninhabited, that is connected with big deficiency of fresh water. In 2010 men made 49.3%. 50796 people. Women of 50.7%. 52262 people. The share of urban population in 2010 made 48.7%. People. Of the population, rural minus 51.3%. 52876.
Level of natural increase in 1990-1995 was 1.4% in comparison with 1985-1990, 2.3%.
The share of children up to 15 years in 2010 made 36.1%, adult population from 16 to 50 years minus 51.8%, 50 years minus 12.1% or more senior. Average life expectancy of men in 1990-1995 made 57.2 years, women minus 62.3 years.
The remaining high rates of increase in population create a possibility of considerable decline in quality of life in the country.
As a result of overpopulation of islands, the soil erosion caused by construction of roads, pollution of groundwaters, also dangerous load of a fragile ecosystem of atolls is created, and the population growing every year faces a problem of shortage of drinking water more and more sharply. Natives of Kiribati are presented by two ethnoses. To Kiribati, or Itungar. The self-named Kiribati, which make about 89.5% people of all population of the country, and Banaba, the descendants of natives from the Gilbert Islands who lodged on the island of Banaba, or ocean, and as a result of century isolation stood apart from the people of Kiribati in independent ethnos. At the moment the most part of these people lives on the island Rambi in Fiji. Share of the people of Tuvalu in the country very low, minus 0.1%. 116 people. Other population, people from mixed marriages of Kiribati and foreigners, minus 9.7%. 9960 people. The people of Kiribati speak Micronesian language, Kiribati. Gilbertskia.
Till 1979 the Gilbert Islands were the British colony, therefore English is official, though on them very few people speak outside South Tarawa.
Before appearance of missionaries on the island of Banaba, locals spoke special language which, however, went out of use. Any texts in this language didn't remain as there was no his written form. In 1857 American missionary Hiram Bingham II based a mission on the island of Byang. The island Charlotte, the atoll in the archipelago of Gilberta, was called earlier. He developed the written form of the Kiribati language based on the Latin alphabet and used still. The alphabet of Kiribati consists of 13 letters. Loans from English adapt to phonetics of Kiribati, for example, a word. Tika car. To Christianity on islands, traditional beliefs were widespread. Maka, magic. They included worship of God Naro, belief in spirits and ghosts. Nowadays most of believers, Catholics of 55.8%. 57503 people. Congregación Nacionalista is 33.5%. 34528 people. Followers of other religious trends. Assembly of God, Mormons, Baptist, Seventh-day Adventist Church. Or small. The modern political system of Kiribati was created on the basis of the system of colonial management existing on islands within 87 years. After obtaining independence, the Constitution of the Republic of Kiribati, in which lines of both the presidential and parliamentary republic are traced, that, according to her originators, best reflects egalitaristiske socio-political structure of Kiribatiske society, in which the general equalization acts as the principle of the organization of public life, was adopted on July 12, 1979. The supreme body of legislature, unicameral parliament, or Maniba Monkatabu. Maniba ni Monkatabu. Consisting of 42 deputies, from them 40 deputies elected by national vote, 1 deputy nominated by Banabanski Community Fiji through the Council of Elders, and the Attorney General, the highest official of justice. A term of office of Parliament, 4 years. The head of state and the governments, the president or Beretitente. Beretitente. Chosen for 4 years by national vote. The number of candidates for president is strictly regulated. Then there have to be no more than 4 and not less than 2. Candidates are elected from among members of parliament during his congress, the first after the general election. Further, these candidates participate in presidential elections. The president appoints from members of parliament the cabinet, into which enter the vice president, or Kauman Beretitente. Kauman ni Beretitente. The attorney general and 10 ministers. The cabinet is executive body which bears collective responsibility before parliament of the country. Judicial authority is completely independent, and its hierarchy is under construction on standard model. Magistrates' Court, High Court and Court of Appeal. Besides, behind the state, the right of the appeal to Privy Council of Great Britain on a limited circle of questions remained. Till 1977, island judges who considered small cases acted. The inferior court, the magistrates' court, consisting of 3 magistrates. Article 88 of the Constitution of Kiribati establishes the High Court of Kiribati, consisting of the Supreme Judge and group of judges. The Supreme Judge is appointed the President in coordination with the Cabinet after consultation with the Commission on Questions of Public Service. Other judges are also appointed the President in coordination with the Supreme Judge and the Commission on Questions of Public Service. The Supreme Judge has to be an expatriate. That is, the emigrant who worked abroad as the judge or was not less than 5 years a barrister or the solicitor. Special categories of lawyers. Article 90 of the Constitution of the Republic of Kiribati establishes Court of Appeal, into which the Supreme Judge, other judges of the High Court of Kiribati and a group of persons enter, appointed by the President with the consent of the Supreme Judge and the Commission on Questions of Public Service. The Chairman of Court of Appeal is appointed the President with the consent of the Cabinet after consultation with the Commission on Questions of Public Service. According to the law on courts of appeal, the Court of Appeal has to sit with the assistance of not less than 3 judges. Each inhabited island of Kiribati and 3 districts of the atoll of Tarawa, South Tarawa, Bichio and Northern Tarawa, form constituencies. The number of representatives from each of them depends on population of this district. Constituencies with the population less than 2,000 people are represented by 1 deputy in Parliament. with the population from 2,000 to 3,000 people minus 2 deputies. Those districts, which population more than 3,000 people minus 3 deputies. Despite existence of various political fractions shortly before obtaining independence, measures for formalization of the place and a role of political parties in management of structures of Kiribati it wasn't undertaken. Now existence of various political associations comes down to support, or not support of policy of the president, so there was a formation of government party and opposition. Over time words entered a political lexicon. Bate, or party, and Tikoitar, or opposition. On the modern political scene, two political parties dominate. Butokantikoa, or Pillars of the Truth. Butokantikoa. And Manibantimori, or Protecte Maniba. Manibantimori. Nautiak Party is in power. Controls 18 of 42 seats in parliament. And her leader, Anoton, is the president of the country. Maiden Party, which leader is the former president of Kiribati Tabaroro Tito, controls 7 seats in parliament. Other 19 places are taken by non-parties. Activity of Tiok in the political sphere rather successful. The former presidents of Kiribati of Iremia Tabai and Tito Tianaki were members of this party. In the Republic of Kiribati there are no armed forces. Ensuring defense of the country is carried out by armed forces of Australia and New Zealand. Police of Kiribati, Najsratelni and compulsory body. In 2004 152 persons were the share of one police officer. In spite of the fact that forces of police rather effectively work in questions of fight against crime and maintenance of an order in the country, there are several spheres in which the police can cope with a situation, for example, in questions of ensuring traffic. The Commissioner of Police is appointed the President of the country after approval of candidate with the Cabinet and the Commission on questions of public service. One of the priority directions of foreign policy activity of Kiribati is drawing attention of the international community to a problem of global warming which threatens the future of the country. Kiribati maintains friendship with all countries of the world. The closest cooperation is carried out with the countries of the Pacific region. Australia, New Zealand, Taiwan, Japan, who provide significant financial aid to developing economy of Kiribati. The first three provide the most part of the foreign help of the country. Taiwan and Japan also have licenses for fishing in waters of Kiribati for a certain period of time. The sole diplomatic mission of Kiribati is on Fiji. As one of the most vulnerable countries in the world to consequences of global warming, Kiribati actively participates in the international diplomatic efforts connected with climate change, especially in the conferences of the parties. Camp of Union Facts. Kiribati is a member of Alliance of the Small Island States. AOSIS. Founded in 1990, the alliance sets before itself the purpose to unite voices of the small island developing states in fight against global warming. AOSIS was very active from the moment of the creation, having presented the first draft of the text at negotiations on the Kyoto Protocol since 1994. Diplomatic relations between the USSR and Kiribati were established on September 5, 1990. Nevertheless, in the territory of the Republic of Kiribati there is no Russian embassy. The interests of Kiribati in Russia are represented by Embassy of Great Britain. The Russian interests in Kiribati are represented by Embassy of the Russian Federation in Indonesia. The Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary in the Republic of Kiribati. In combination. Since November 2012 is M. by Yalazan, the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Russian Federation in the Republic of Indonesia. In September 1999, the Republic of Kiribati became the 186th member of the United Nations. Also, this Micronesian state is a DIC of the British Commonwealth of Nations, the International Monetary Fund, the Pacific Islands Forum, the International Bank, Asian Development Bank, the countries, the Act, and other international organizations. In November 1999, Kiribati agreed to resolve English Russian to rent to the National Space Agency of Japan the Earth on Christmas Island for a period of 20 years for construction of the spaceport. The agreement provided that Japan has to pay $1 a year and also indemnify any loss to roads and the environment. A station of tracking of more low-rank built in Japan works at the island works, and the Throne Airfield was designated as a runway for the offered reusable pilotless space shuttle under the name HOPEX. However, in 2003 Japan finally cancelled this project. In 2009 the president of Kiribati Anote Tong attended the forum of the countries vulnerable for climate change. On Maldives, and on November 10, 2009 signed the Declaration of the Island Bandos, having promised to show moral leadership and to begin gardening of the country. Economies. In November 2010, Kiribati organized the Conference on Climate Change in Tarawa to support the President's initiative of holding an advisory forum between the vulnerable states and their partners. At a conference, an attempt to create the environment promoting multilateral negotiations under the auspices of Union Facts was made. The conference was a successor of the Forum on Vulnerable Climatic Conditions. The ultimate goal of an action consisted in reducing quantity and intensity of failures between the parties of COP, to study elements of the agreement between the parties and, thus, to support a contribution of Kiribati and other parties to COP Conference 16, which was taking place in Cancun, Mexico, from November 29 to December 10, 2010. In 2013, the president of Kiribati Tong said that the sea level rise caused by climate change is inevitable. That our people survived, they should migrate. Or we can wait for the moment when we have to move people in a Massachusetts order, or we can prepare them from this point. In New York in 2014, according to the New York Times, Anote Tong said that, according to forecasts, in this century water will be above the highest point of our lands. The same year he finished purchase of a 20-kilometer ground to Vanuatu, one of the largest Fiji islands. On November 7, 2003, Kiribati established diplomatic relations with the Republic of China on the island of Taiwan. That promoted a complication of a relationship with the People's Republic of China. In particular, the Chinese station of tracking satellites was closed, construction by Chinese of the main stadium in South Tarawa is stopped, and 6 doctors from National Hospital Kiribati were recalled. Somehow, to justify the actions, the President Tong said that a relationship with Taiwan will positively affect economic development of Kiribati, will involve the Taiwan businessmen to the small Pacific state.
Taiwan responded with the monetary help to the Micronesian Republic of $8 million, which have to spend for the end of construction of stadium in South Tarawa to the termination of close cooperation of Kiribati with the People's Republic of China. The termination of a relationship with the People's Republic of China sharply affected the economy of Kiribati, as China annually allocated the help to this state of $2 million. On September 20, 2019, the government of Kiribati restored diplomatic relations with People's Republic of China and at the same time stopped diplomatic relations with Taiwan.
According to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Taiwan, Joseph Wu, for decision-making, China offered Boeing 737 and ferries in Kiribati. The Republic of Kiribati closely cooperates with the European Union, for example, in the sphere of fishing trade. On September 16, 2003, the agreement under which the vessels belonging to EU member states are granted the right of catch of a tuna in the exclusive economic zone Kiribati was signed. The EU also provides significant financial aid to the Republic in the sphere of development of solar power on the remote islands, development of agriculture, cultivation of seaweed. Nevertheless, cooperation between Kiribati and the certain countries of the Union is very narrow purpose. For example, Great Britain generally makes investments in education, and France in health sector. Except for the period from 1994 to 1998, in which the significant economic growth caused, first of all, by the stimulating economic measures of the state was noted, the economy of Kiribati developed rather slow rates. In 1999, the indicator of NPN grew by only 1.7%. In economy of this agrarian country, public sector continues to prevail.
Amid a combination of slow rates of economic growth and low level of services to the fact that Kiribati from 12 Pacific member states of Asian Development Bank by the Index of Human Development I took in 1999 8th place.
Considerable obstacles in a way of development of this microstrata are not only the small area of sushi, but also ecological and geographical factors, including remoteness from the world markets of sales of products, geographical dispersion, vulnerability to natural disasters, and extremely limited domestic market. Due to limited opportunities for economic growth in terms of the area of the country, existence of natural wealth, small human resources and low NPN and therefore narrow domestic market, the only way of economic development for this island state is involvement of migrants. Is one of production factors. Money transfers and the monetary help of other states. Financial transfers. And their support on the state. Public financing of economy. Such model of development attaches significance to maintenance of high consumption level within the country. The Republic of Kiribati became independent in 1979, soon after development of the field of phosphates on the island of Banaba, and these minerals made 85% of all export of the country, 45% of NPN and 50% of the state budget. Since then, the copra and fish products became the main sources of income for Kiribati. The main employer in the country is the state, which, despite the opportunities, can't solve a problem of employment of young citizens of the country, many of which have no sufficient education level. Issue of licenses for the right of catch of fish in her special economic zone became other source of income for Kiribati in recent years.
Monetary unit of Kiribati, Australian dollar. However, since 1979 in the address in the territory of the Republic, also Kiribati dollars equated in the ratio 1:1 to Australian dollar work.
7 types of coins. Face values in 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, 50 Kiribati cents. $1 and $2 are in circulation. All coins, except coins in 50 cents and $1, have the same sizes as the corresponding Australian. The coin in 50 cents is round shape, while in $1 a dodecagon form. On the budget for 2005, expenses made 1,000 and income minus 1,000 Australian dollars. The largest article of an account part of the budget are expenses for education.
Expenses on maintenance of an order and safety of the country make 1,000 Australian dollars.
The share of costs of healthcare in 2005 made 17% of all expenses. Among income, receipts from taxes and duties have the greatest value, and a crucial role is played by indirect taxes, minus 62% of all income. Important source of replenishment of the budget of the country are also stamps, which attract interest of philatelists from around the world.
During the period from 2001 to 2005, decrease in receipts in the state budget was observed that it is connected with reduction of income from issue of licenses for catch of fish in an exclusive economic zone of the country.
In Kiribati, 2 banks, Development Bank of Kiribati and Kiribati Bank, work. The last bank is joint establishment of the Government of Kiribati and Westpac Banking Corporation of Australia Corporation, Australia. The Kiribati Bank provides a full package of financial services, including the international transactions. In spite of the fact that in Kiribati there are considerable restrictions for development of agriculture, in particular because of the small area of atolls, technology of cultivation of the earth in this Pacific Republic reached rather high level. Development of agriculture, nevertheless, negatively affected a vegetable cover of islands, in particular, led to deforestation. One of the most important crops in Kiribati, huge marsh taro, from whom receive valuable starch.
However, recently, in connection with increase in consumption of rice and flour, taro's role decreased a little. Also, decrease in productivity of this agricultural plant on the atoll of Tarawa is observed that it is connected with distribution of a Papuana hubneri bug parasite.
Despite the small area of the country and poor soils, agriculture plays one of key roles in the economy of Kiribati. Considerable success is achieved in increase in production of copra, one of the main export goods of the state. In 1998, 77 tons of copra with a total amount of $4.5 million were exported.
For example, fishes it was exported for the sum of $1 million.
It is possible to distinguish a pandanus, a breadfruit tree, a papaya from other important agricultural plants. Latin of carica papaya. One of the priority directions of development of economy is decrease in a share of the imported agricultural products.
Achievement of this purpose is possible only at an agriculture intensification, which will also allow to solve problems of providing with food of the increasing population of the country.
However, it is problematic to carry out. A set of valuable species of fish and mollusks lives in coastal waters and lagoons of atolls. The important place in a diet of locals is taken the mollusks divorced by them by Tridacna. Latin of Tridacnida. Fishery continues to play an important role in the life of people of Kiribati. And Kiribati. In the ocean generally are engaged in trade of fishes of family Scumbrievi, especially 18 of types of armor. Catasoeuspalaemus and lat. Thunus albicares and fishes of armor. Cypselurus cps. In lagoons fish of a type of armor gets divorced. Chonos. In lagoons of atolls also there lives the great number of invertebrates, for example, of mollusks which in the country of nearly 1000 types. In 1977 in Kiribati from Philippines 2 species of seaweed, Euchuma alcorezi and Euchuma spinosum which main centers of cultivation became the island of Tubuaran and Abayang were delivered. Recently in the country increase in income from sale of these sea plants is observed. The government of the Republic also makes attempts on cultivation of Shemchichitsa and for receiving valuable black pearls.
With an exclusive economic zone more than 3.5 million km. The second biggest in the Pacific Ocean, it is no wonder that the fishing sector is one of the main sources of revenues of the state.
Replenishment of the state budget is also carried out due to issue to foreign vessels of the license for the right of catch of fish in this economic zone. At the same time income from licensing in many respects depends on weather conditions.
Namely the phenomena of El Niño and La Nina.
The tuna is of the main interest to foreign vessels. Now Kiribati looks for ways of development of the local fishing industry. However, for implementation of this plan it is necessary to solve the problems connected with the price and availability of fuel, remoteness of the world markets and the competition from the developed countries. The remoteness from each other of islands of the Republic strongly affects transport and communications of the country. In Kiribati length of highways is only 670 km. Mainly on the atoll of Tarawa. In 2004 in Kiribati there were only 2070 vehicles. In the Republic there is no railway transport. The main government agency responsible for sea and air traffic, the Ministry of Information, Communication and Transport. English: the Ministry of Information, Communications and Transport. Is
regular internal air flights from the atoll of Tarawa to other Gilbert Islands are made by national airline Air of Kiribati.
Also twice a week on the atoll of Tarawa the plane of Noruanski airline, Noru Airlines, lands.
The internal sea messages carried out by both the government and private companies International, the Bali Highlines, Chief Container Services and Kiribati Shipping Services Limited companies delivering freights to Australia and the countries of Asia.
In 2017 export of goods was estimated at $51.5 million, import minus $92.4 million. Nearly 80% of export are the share of fish and seafood. Not cut frozen fish. $31.9 million. Fish fillet. $6.47 million. Live fish. $1.27 million. Etc. The second most important place is taken by products of a coconut palm. A copra. $7.52 million. And coconut oil, $2.02 million. The main buyers: Mexico, 35%. Philippines, 19%. And Japan, 19%. In import ready-made products of food, nearly 20%, including the processed meat, sugar and tobacco. Oil products, 11%. And also machines, the equipment and vehicles prevail. Consumer goods and agricultural raw materials of food appointment are in addition imported. The offal, grain, rice, etc. The chief suppliers: Fiji, 24%. Australia, 17%. And China, 16%.
Envelope with the stamps of the Gilbert Islands and Ellis, which are released to the 75th anniversary of Universal Postal Union,
1949. All telecommunication services in the country, including internal and international telephone communication, facsimile and mobile communication services, the Internet, are provided by the company, Telecom Services Kiribati Limited. SETSCO founded in 1990 and which is since June 1, 2001 in the full property of the government Kiribati.
National AM and FM radio in the country, Radio Kiribati.
Is state ownership and generally broadcasts news of the BBC company. English BBC. In the territory of the country it is also possible to catch the Radio of Australia programs. And Voice of America. In 1999 opposition forces of Kiribati tried to start the broadcasting, however the government of Kiribati curtailed it, having fined owners for attempt of import to the country of the unlicensed broadcasting equipment.
After judicial proceedings, the license of this radio company after all was granted. Since then one private radio station, New Air FM, works in the country, at the head of which there is the former President of the Republic, who also publishes the only regular private newspaper in the country. Two main newspapers of Kiribati appear weekly.
Tijuyekara newspaper. Tiokara.
Belongs to the government of Kiribati, and circulation is about 1800 copies, which generally extends on the atoll of Tarawa where lives
she part of the population of the country. In 2003 the cost of one number was 60 Australian cents. The newspaper is issued in two languages, Kiribati and English. Kiribati Naya Star. English Kiribati New Star. The first private newspaper of this Pacific state, based by the former president, nowadays the oppositionist, Iremia Tabai. English Iremia Tabai. The newspaper mainly is issued in the Kiribati language. Articles sometimes are located on English.
The cost of one number in 2003 was also 60 Australian cents, and circulation was comparable to the circulation of the Tijuyekara newspaper.
Various religious organizations also publish the newspapers and other periodicals. According to the law on registration of newspapers, all newspapers have to undergo the state registration.
October 2002, the amendment to this law according to which the government of the country was granted the right for revocation of license of various newspaper editions was adopted if publications in these newspapers offend feelings of the people or promote the newspaper articles to rise in crime.
However, for 2002-2003 the license wasn't revoked from one of periodicals. One of obstacles in a way of development of media to Kiribati is the high cost of the import typographical equipment. From 1988 years in the country, increase in number of tourists is observed. In 1993 the country 4730 people, in 2005 only visited 3037 people, in 2012 6000 people.
In comparison with other Pacific states it isn't enough. Kiribati, one of the most seldom visited countries of the planet.
Among the countries over which there is statistics of visit. The main obstacle in a way of development of tourism to Kiribati is bad air traffic with other countries of the world and also lack of hotel business. As of 1989 in South Tarawa there were only 2 hotels, on the island of Obamama, 1, as well as on Christmas Island. Level of the provided services is low. Main types of rest for foreigners: beach tourism, sports fishing, diving, observation of birds. The main flow of tourists goes to the Gilbert Islands. First of all, to the atoll of Tarawa, or to Christmas Island, or Kiribati. Generally the country is visited by tourists from Australia, Fiji, the USA and New Zealand. Citizens of a number of the states, first of all the British Commonwealth of Nations, don't need receipt of a visa for visit of Kiribati or have the right to be in the territory of the Republic without it within 30 days. The visa can be received in a number of consulates of Kiribati in the territory of other states. In Fiji, Australia, Germany, Japan, South Korea, New Zealand, Great Britain, Shaw. The cost of the visa is from 40 for one visit of the country, up to 70 Australian dollars. The visa of repeated use. The culture of Kiribati is in many respects unique. Dances, generally on the island Tabatuea. Unique military art, figures from special strings are known. There are traditional customs and beliefs. The belief in ghosts and magic beings is widespread. Before appearance of Europeans of the settlement of the people of Kiribati represented the numerous, scattered on all island villages, or a king. Kinga, which were not a just main type of settlements, but the main form of the organization of society.
Kane consisted of small communities or a emanane.
Moinga, which were based on the patrimonial principle. Itkenga in the central and southern parts of the Gilbert Islands owned a certain area of land and also the small site of the coastal waters rich with fish. Later, with the advent of the British colonial administration at the end of the 19th century, this system of public possession of marine resources was abolished. Public life of the villages of Kiribati is concentrated in Maniba. From Maniba, in which Mania, the building, Tiaba, people, the earth. The important traditional public building. Manib is in each village of Kiribati, and the parliament of the country carries the name Maniba Monkatabu. From Manibani Monkatabu, that in translation means the house in which the people meet. Manib, the multi-purpose building in which, first of all, inhabitants discuss affairs of the settlement. Manib are an public court and also the place for holidays and dances. A certain place which is called the boat is assigned to each family in a Maniba. Boti.
A major role in a Maniba is played by the elder or the Unimena.
Unimane. Highly esteemed by locals. Considerable remoteness from each other of the islands of Kiribati, fish is one of the main food, caused skill of the people of the country in fishery and in construction of a canoe. The important place in the life of people of Kiribati is taken by the music and dances which are closely connected among themselves. Singing is always followed by vigorous dances. Subjects of Kiribati music are various. These are songs about love and newlyweds, about rivalry, military, patriotic and religious songs. Performances of musicians in Kiribati are generally held to time of large holidays. The main musical instruments are the guitar and a drum. Composers of music in Kiribati are called by those Kanakaman. T. Kanakaman. And those someone sing songs the Rurabina. Rurabine. The Republic of Kiribati was accepted in the Olympic movement in July 2003, and in 2004 this Micronesian state participated in the Olympic Games in Athens. Weightlifters and athletes from Kiribati didn't achieve any success. In 2002 this country for the first time participated in Commonwealth Games in Manchester.
To Kiribati it was presented in weightlifting, table tennis and a triathlon.
Holidays. January 1 New Year. March 8 International Day of Women. Good Friday varies. The first day of Easter varies. Like Monday varies.
April 18 Day of Health.
July 11 Day of the Gospel. July 12 Independence Day. August 7 Youth Day. December 10 Day of Human Rights. December 25 Christmas. December 26 Day of Gifts. December 31 Eve of New Year. Despite considerable improvements in the country, in Kiribati there is still a set of problems in health sector. Because the Republic became the participant of world economic processes, the diseases of the Western way of life, connected with increase in a diet of locals of rice, the refined sugar, canned food and carbonated drinks became widespread in it. These imported food forced out traditional food of the people of Kiribati, for example, very vitamin-rich and drink nutrients from cocos, a kamema. Kameme. Being a few years ago the main drink of the country.
Due to the increase in life expectancy and high level of increase in population, these Pacific people face a problem of overpopulation of atolls more and more sharply.
Especially Tarawa. Result of this process already became pollution of groundwaters which and so aren't enough on islands, and spread of diarrheal diseases. Increase in number of the people who caught HIV and tuberculosis. In 2003 the highest level of infection with tuberculosis in the Pacific region is noted. Became other consequence of globalization for Kiribati.
Statistically, the most widespread diseases in the Republic diseases of the respiratory system and diarrhea.
The leading causes of death, cardiovascular diseases and diseases of the liver. As a result of pollution of groundwaters and lagoons in 1977 on Tarawa there was an outbreak of cholera.
In 1999 Kiribati took the second place in Oceania after Papua New Guinea on the level of child mortality.
Other problem on islands, frequent poisoning with fish. Smoking, on who researches is widespread. In 2018 Kiribati was the smoker country in the world. About 52.2% of the population use tobacco. Distribution of the Western way of life and urbanization led to increase in number of cases of diabetes, the obesity raised by the blood pressure, gout, a coronary heart trouble, paralysis and some types of cancer. In recent years to Kiribati the tendency to deficiency of vitamins and minerals in an organism of locals. The shortage of iron led to increase in number of the people having anemia, vitamin A, diseases of eyes. Was traced. The main source of proteins on islands, fish, catch volume counting on which one of the highest in the Pacific region. But, in spite of the fact that many locals are engaged in catch of fish whose part is on sale in the markets, at 7% of children of preschool age and at 69% of pregnant women in 1998 the deficiency of proteins was observed. In March 2004 Kiribati joined the Convention of the Minding Discrimination of Women. Abortions are forbidden.
Up to 1965 in the British colony of the Gilbert Islands and Ellice any measures for integration and coordination of activity of elementary schools weren't carried out.
Primary education was provided by either administration of colony or Christian church. At the same time there was no continuity in their teaching. In 1965 extensive strategy in the field of education which was finished and accepted further by the House of Representatives in 1970 was developed.
The idea about introduction of 9-year primary education for all children was the cornerstone of this document that had to prepare them for participation in social and economic development of colony and also would allow to create the base of knowledge for further education at high schools.
Measures for association and integration of the existing small schools were as a result carried out. Grants are entered. In 1977 the colonial government of the Gilbert Islands and Ellice, preparing for obtaining independence, took under the control all elementary schools, except 6 private schools existing at the time. Grants, but in the 1980th years the first government of the independent Republic of Kiribati were cancelled, pursuing the aim of general availability of secondary education, carried out new policy in the sphere of education as a result of which it was entered free obligatory initial educations from 1st on the 7th classes. That is for children of 6-12 years. In 1998 in Kiribati the first 4 junior high schools
opened, which emergence is connected with the decree of the President Tabaroro Tito of October 1994.
In the next years high schools were open on all manned islands of Kiribati. All 21 schools appeared. Training duration at junior high school is 3 years. Children of 12-14 years.
Then pupils have to pass the state examination for receipt for the last 4th year of training in the high school.
In 2005 in initial classes of 91 schools 16133 children studied. 25 pupils were the share of that period on one teacher at school. At the end of 2005 at high schools of Kiribati studied the 7,487th child. At the same time 11 pupils were the share of one teacher. Further education can be got in the Training Center of Teachers, Turovsky Technical Institute, Sea Training School, Turovsky branch of the Yuzhno-Trukhiansky University. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.